Welcome to Spoilers Intended, a podcast about series, novels, and films. For this episode, there's enough effects to make your head spin. The studio is betting they have another win, and there's even a cameo or three to elicit a grin. That's right, we're talking Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I'm Stephen Ford, joined as always by Andrew Knuckles.
Salutations.
And Joel Killingsworth.
Hello.
Hello indeed. So that's right, we have on deck Doctor Strange 2 Multiverse Boogaloo, also known as Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
The latest in MCU, Disney, Marvel conglomerate of films.
Just another piece of the puzzle added to the big ball of inertia.
This is what, like film 26, 27?
It's way up there. Phase 4. There are a lot of franchises that don't have 4 films, and Marvel's like, well, we've entered phase 4.
Well, and there's a lot of things that you have to watch before you get to this film to understand it.
It's funny you should bring that up, because for our intro topic, we're going to do something a little different. And we're going to talk about some required reading.
Man, how did you like that segue? That was fantastic.
He just rolled right up on it.
I just lobbed it out there. I just blasted it.
I have waited for this discussion for a very long time.
This is one of 2 discussions that we've been sitting on for a while. The other one you don't get to know about because that's for an episode sometime in the future. So we're going to approach this as spoiler-free as possible. I want to reiterate that to both of you because this is dangerous territory.
Right. So, but let's go ahead and lay out what we're talking about with in terms of
required
Doctor
reading.
Strange.
Yes.
Right. Because for this, you definitely need to have seen the first Doctor Strange movie, but that's kind of
logical.
It's a no-brainer. This is Doctor Strange 2. You should probably see Doctor Strange 1. You also need to have seen the Disney Plus series WandaVision.
Yes.
Which is an excellent piece of media in its own right. So like that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But there are other potential issues because that's a TV show and not a movie, and it's behind a paywall on a subscription service and not in the theater and all that kind of stuff. But then there's a whole bunch of references that are made in this film that if you have not been keeping up with the MCU at large, you're probably going to be a little lost.
So what if I posited something else? That the least required reading of this movie is the first Doctor Strange movie.
I would probably agree with this.
Oh, interesting.
I don't think that any of the again, trying to say spoiler free, I don't think that any of the plot points really rest on you having knowledge of. You just be like, oh, that's important to him. Oh, this person's important to them. Oh, okay. I accept this because they're a full-fledged person.
Basically essentially as long as you've seen Infinity War and Endgame, that's pretty much all the Doctor Strange you really need.
There are a couple of his allies that their characters are established in the original.
It would
Doctor
help.
Film.
It would help to know who Wang is.
Yeah,
Wong
is the name of the actor.
I thought they were
they were both Wong.
I'm pretty sure his last name is also Wong.
There's Benedict Cumberbatch and then Benjamin Wong.
Yeah,
and then he's also playing Wong.
That's what threw me. I really wanted to make it at least a little harder, but no, I always hesitate on those kinds of actors where it's like, oh, you played the same name or it rhymes with your name. It's like, are you bad at names, or I'm not sure.
Okay, so required reading for just
it's even worse than that. It's Benedict Wong.
Oh, that's what really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, sorry, not Ben. I knew they had the exact same name. I just got it mixed up. So required reading is going to just be the general term that we're going to be using here instead of required watching or homework or anything like that. Just required reading is what it is because that is what you had to do in grade school whenever you had a literature class or whatever. You had required reading to take a test or stuff like that. And essentially these new films are tests on if you've seen the stuff before it.
And recently too, because even if you've seen some of these films and it's been several years, looking at Andrew, some things may just be lost on you because it's been a couple of years.
Yeah. So, there are character references and stuff in this new film that just kind of happen. And for me, I'm just like, that's just a character. And I've definitely seen every single MCU film. I watched it all in chronological order over the pandemic. And it probably doesn't help that I watched them all pretty quickly. So I didn't have a lot of time to like marinate on each film. But I didn't remember basically anything that happened in the original Doctor Strange film besides the fact that Rachel McAdams was in it.
Well, again, this is why I posit that Strange 1 might be the least required reading of the other list that we gave.
But before we delve into like the pitfalls inherent in a required reading setup,
right?
Let's talk about for a moment the why someone would do this. Why has the MCU set themselves up in such a manner that they are, by the very nature of their construction,
interconnected,
required to have this mechanism? And so I think the biggest deal is the potential to have an audience that continues to reap emotional benefit out of basically a single buy-in, right?
Yeah, or a single line of dialogue, or
well, I mean, you have emotional investment in characters and storylines.
You really
and
liked
things,
the
right?
first Iron Man movie, and so now you're going to go see Thor because you're going to go see Iron Man in Avengers, but you probably kind of need to know something about the other people, so we'll go see that too. Well, they just made money off the fact you like Iron Man.
So like from a monetary perspective, that makes sense, but it also makes sense in terms of why is this something that as an audience member, I would want to have and want to see. One of the potential benefits is not only I'm paying money to go see this other thing, but it's also that I want to see this other thing where this character that I know and love is showing up in this other thing that's not directly related to him, but I get to enjoy his presence and I get extra feel-good chemicals because I am reaping the benefits of a previously made emotional investment in a character.
Yeah, and the closest analog that I have is basically like shonen anime. So like shonen anime is a long running TV series like Dragon Ball Z or One Piece or Bleach, Naruto, those kind of things. And whenever you have these conversations like, oh, what's your favorite anime, or what's the best anime, and you can't really say these kind of shows because they have such a long time to develop characters and develop emotional stakes that matter 300 episodes down the line, whereas it's a much slower going kind of story just because the progression just happens at a slower pace because there's just such a large amount of episodes in between. So with the MCU, that's kind of what they're doing is comic books are always just been kind of, the nerd soap opera, right? Where you have characters that die and then they come back to life. And then you have the character that turned evil for a movie or a comic book or an arc. And then they come back and they've redeemed themselves because of something else.
And we have the long lost brother, the long lost son, etc.
Exactly. Yeah. And that is it is just soap opera, but for nerds. And, granted, it is a very well-produced soap opera and it is engaging most of the time. And with that, you have these emotional payoffs, especially I'll say with Endgame and Infinity War, that have just these emotional crescendos that, I mean, even as a non-comic book fan or superhero fan like myself, when I watched it without any other context from the other films that I hadn't seen them yet, I was like, this was actually a pretty fun ride. And I can feel like, and that's kind of what made me want to go watch the other films. So, in that perspective, they did a really good job with it.
And this is a technique that is not new with the MCU at all. Like, I mean, you get it internally in long running series, like you talked about with anime, but also you have like the whole crossover craze in like the late 90s and early 2000s of primetime television serials where there would be like, we're at 8 p.m. on Wednesdays. We're going to have a crossover episode with the show that runs on 9 p.m. on Wednesdays.
Yeah, with Xena the Warrior Princess and Hercules.
Right? Like our main characters are going to show up with their main characters in their episode, and you have to go watch both shows if you want that whole arc because it's a two-parter.
Yeah.
And so that it's a great way to have not only cross-promotion, but you still tap into this, hey, I get to see my favorite characters in this other thing that they're not normally in, and that feels good.
So what I like here, just thinking about as y'all are talking, is, franchises like Ghostbusters and Star Wars had to wait anywhere from 20 to 40 years to nostalgia bait fans. And Marvel was like, hold my beer. I want to nostalgia bait something that happened last year.
As that exact same comparison came to mind as I was describing it, is that because the entire process of storytelling can be described as just hacking the audience's brain.
Yes.
Mhm.
And so the question then comes as to what is white hat hacking and what is malicious hacking.
Black hat.
Yeah.
How many times can you press the button before your brain just gives out because you can't have any more treats?
Well, and that's kind of where the conversation for required reading kind of comes up, from the sense of, okay, I'm an outsider that, my friends are all into Marvel films, and I am, just the guy, I'm the weirdo that never seen one or anything like that. But, they all like, oh, hey, do you want to go see the new Doctor Strange movie? Like, yeah, sure. That sounds like fun. It's a good, outing with some friends. Oh, actually, you need to go watch WandaVision. Oh, you probably actually need to go see Infinity War and Doctor Strange 1 and Endgame and No Way Home.
No Way Home might actually help you to understand this, and maybe what if?
Yeah. And that's the problem that you kind of run into.
Well, you have a built-in fan base that you've slowly built over time, but injecting new fans
is a bit of a harder.
Hard. Yeah,
there's a huge learning curve and there's a lot of buy-in.
Yes, it's a lot of. I mean, it's a big time commitment, especially when you consider that some of these pieces, you're gonna. At this point right now, you go to Disney Plus, you stream most of it. Basically,
I think the only one you can't stream is No Way Home is on there now too.
Yeah. But at one point in time, we had stuff that was split over Netflix, and it was only there was other stuff that was only in movies, and obviously Disney's done a good job of condensing that. But we still have the issue of, well, if you want to buy a $20 movie ticket to go see this movie, you first have to pay $20 for a month of Disney Plus to binge 3 shows or whatnot.
Mm-hmm. And with that, like it feels kind of predatory.
Well,
because it's clearly a conscious effort for them that and it may not be predatory from their perspective of we're only in it to make money, because clearly like a lot of the creators for these shows do have passion for the product that they're making.
Well, and give them credit, unlike certain other franchises of recent memory, they obviously have some form of an outline somewhere that they're reasonably following.
Well, it helps that they have literally like ages of comics,
and that's also a detriment. Right? There's a lot to wade through there. There's some really bad stories in there as well. just throwing that out there. Just being honest. There's some clunkers. I had another thought and then I lost.
Well, I'll pick it up from there. Not only talking about the paywall issue with now I need to be subscribed to Disney Plus in order to specifically get access to the shows that never aired in theaters. So there's no reasonable way for me to have seen them anywhere else. They just don't exist anywhere else. That is, you can argue that a couple of different ways, because if you're just picking up a subscription for that one service, you can get it for less than the price of a single movie ticket for a month.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so if you view it that way, then it's just, well, I'm buying a cheap ticket and I get one season of this show and whatever else I can happen to watch in a month. But,
which is roughly, 2 or 3 full films worth. So I mean, like if you're looking at ROI from the single ticket purchase, it's actually good.
Yeah. So like it doesn't seem to, just because of the way that the pricing bracket works out, it doesn't seem too predatory from that perspective. But at the same time, you're also crossing not only where you're viewing the media, but the type of media itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now let me flip that one, because you used the key term and it brought me back to my thought.
Oh, there we go.
Predatory.
Okay.
So let's look at some of the other pieces of material that has come out surrounding some of these movies, some of the other TV shows, right, that haven't had as high of an acclaim. Well, in some senses, we strip that framework away of, I watched this movie because I really like this character and he was in that movie and I love that movie and now he's going to be in this movie, so I want to watch this movie even though it's about this other character because I really like that character, right? I'm just going to do this. Well, we hit these points where what if the stories that they're telling just aren't good enough on their own? And when you don't have that cross-pollination buy-in of, I really like that character, but now he's in this show and the story just isn't good enough. Because you can get away, right? You can plaster over a lot of faults with the crowd jumping up and roaring.
It's like you had the Leonardo DiCaprio meme where he's pointing at the screen.
Well, the most egregious example of this is not in the Marvel set, but it's actually in the Star Wars set with Book of Boba Fett, right?
Yes.
Because you have the buy-in from everybody who enjoyed Mandalorian season 1 and 2.
And just general Star Wars fans.
Yeah, and with Book of Boba Fett, by and large, it of course has its fans, but for the most part, you just have to slog through the stuff that's sort of about Boba Fett in order to get the 2.5 episodes that are about the Mandalorian, which then becomes required reading, air quotes, for season 3 of Mandalorian, whenever that comes out.
For season 3,
because stuff happens that changes the status quo for the characters.
And you start up season 3 of Mandalorian, like what are you doing? Why are you here?
This is not where we left off.
This is weird.
And whenever that happens, it's off-putting from a fan's perspective. Like my dad, he doesn't, they don't watch like any of the TV shows or anything like that that's on. They only watch The Mandalorian, and that's basically the only reason why they have Disney Plus, as far as I know. And and I know that they are really big Doctor Strange fans. And I know that he's going to want to go see the new film, but they haven't seen WandaVision.
Yeah.
They haven't seen Loki. And whenever, it's one of those things where it's like, if I went and saw that movie with him, or the next time I see him and he's already seen it, he's going to have so many questions that I can't really answer besides just, you probably just need to go see the show.
Yeah.
And like, if you come out of it with that many questions, then the experience just wasn't there for you.
Yeah, because you're watching the film and you're like, well, that's happening. I have no idea who this is. I don't know why this is happening. I don't know why, whatever choices that these characters are making, they just have no emotional weight for me. So, kind of like you were saying, a story is hacking your brain whenever you're watching a film.
Yeah.
And this is just a very, bad way to do it if you're already not in tune with that. And it's not fair to the people that just may not be, hardcore fans. For us, we're all going to go see, probably every MCU movie that comes out. and not, part of one is just because we're on the podcast and we're going to review it. But then at the same time, I'm already, I'm 20 something odd episodes
in the Marvel show.
And I'm that far in, I already have emotional investment. And whether or not I find every single film or every single character compelling, I'm still going to go watch it because I either want to know if it's going to be a train wreck or if it's actually going to, and make me involved in the story a little bit more.
It's an inertia. It's a pot commitment feeling. Although I will say, I chuckled when you said, because we've all seen every one of them, we'll keep seeing them. So I pulled up that list, right, of every MCU related piece in chronological order.
It was an incorrect list though, because it had shows that have been disavowed by the MCU on it.
But it's close enough in terms of number.
Joel already coming in hot.
I know. It's close enough. It took every TV show that's ever been produced with a Marvel tag on it, basically broke it out. We start with, I think, Captain America, the first Avenger, as the first chronological order. And we move forward from there. And at the end of the list, there's 80 entries. There's more than 80 entries in the list. I haven't seen half of them.
Well, easy. I mean, definitely none of the TV shows. The only TV shows that I've seen
there are whole movies I still have never watched in Marvel.
Really?
Oh, do we want to play this game of how much Steven spackles in the knowledge of the movie just based on the fact that he was interested in comic books as a kid and grew up in this era and also has Wikipedia?
Well, I watched the entire series of Game of Thrones without watching a single episode until the final episode.
Yeah. So you want to have some fun? I've seen one Thor movie.
You're only missing out on Ragnarok, so that's fine.
Hold on, I'm gonna make people angry. I've never seen No, I have seen Civil War. Take that back. I've never seen Winter Soldier.
It was fine. I don't think it's the golden goose that a lot of people make it out to be.
I've never seen Ant-Man. Or the second Ant-Man.
You're not missing out on anything.
Okay, so trying to bring it back, bringing it back. I do want to flip this on its head. We've talked about some of the problems with this kind of thing.
What's the advantage? What's the payoff?
Right. So we talked about it being. Well, let's talk about an example of a payoff working well with required reading, and I think that the best example in recent memory is Spider-Man: No Way Home, because you have all of the investment from the previous Spider-Man franchise films.
And that's a special level of required reading because it's different studios.
It is. But you pull all of that together, and I have never been in a movie theater that cheered so hard for characters coming on screen. Not even Force Awakens, right? And like when the old Han and Chewie and the Falcon came on, there was some cheering. But it did not compare to Spider-Man.
So what's impressive too is at that point in the MCU, they know they're nostalgia baiting And if you go and watch those scenes at home by yourself, there's no music behind it because they expect the audience to cheer. You're providing the score for that moment. So it's almost something that has to be enjoyed in theater, because if you're by yourself, you're just like, man, this is a really awkward scene.
So kind of on the point for Spider-Man, is that's, I mean, like, okay, so let's say you do the bare minimum of what you need to watch. You watch Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2 because the character, the bad guy in No Way Home is
I've never seen Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, well, but then you watch Amazing Spider-Man 1 at least, because that has all the characters in there that you need to have. And
almost doesn't have Electro.
So that's almost roughly 8 to 9 hours worth of just commitment to watch older films that may or may not be good.
That aren't Marvel.
Quotation marks, they're actually pretty good.
They're not MCU, quote unquote.
Yeah, but they're not MCU films that you have to go watch outside of this. And it's one of those things where it's like,
you have 2 other Spider-Man films within Marvel too.
Yeah, that you still have to go see.
But I guess the point is that there was such a response to that film that if you get the buy-in and you have done the required reading, then the payoff can, like, the high. What I'm trying to say, I guess, is that the high to this model is really high.
Well, you go and look at,
it's just an expensive high.
Yeah.
Endgame is the last one.
Endgame.
And there are specific scenes there where people record, in the theater, the whole crowd reaction, and then that goes up on YouTube. That's its own marketing campaign, right? Not just because people are getting to see a snippet of the film, illegally, quote unquote, but they're not. It's not getting ripped down.
It's just marketing.
Yeah, I mean, Disney didn't go to YouTube and be like, take this down for copyright infringement.
Yeah.
They were like, dude, can we pay for ads? Can we push this out? Can we boost this post?
Yeah.
Well, and this is also not us saying that like if you go to, if you went and saw Return of the Jedi first before you watch A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, there's going to be a lot of context in that film that just makes no sense
lost,
at all.
Totally lost.
And like, that's good required reading in my book, just because like that is part of the story that's happening. And hypothetically, the whole thing, all of the characters and everything like that in the MCU, that's all part of, quotation marks, the same story. And that is not necessarily a bad thing. I just worry, like, as it gets further in, and now that Disney has their own streaming service, that they are going to force people, if they don't already, I mean, and if you're already that into the MCU, you probably already have a Disney Plus subscription, right? Yeah. But at some point, like, they could raise their rates. Like there's all these different things because they basically control everything.
Well, they're trying to create a locked-in ecosystem a la Apple. Just with a different, it's not that you have to get the new charger because the old charger doesn't work.
You just have to go see the new MCU film.
You have to go see the new film, or you have to have Disney Plus, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is an excellent topic for listener feedback. What sort of level of required reading do you look for in your, big connected storylines, and how much do you think is too much?
Yeah,
and is Marvel there? Have we already jumped that shark?
I mean, people have been positing superhero or Marvel exhaustion for a decade now.
Well, and
the numbers don't indicate that is true.
Yeah, I mean,
but critics keep saying, well, when does the fatigue set in?
Yeah,
and those articles have existed since Iron Man 3, probably.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, I mean, like Doctor Strange 2 had a really great opening weekend, like 180 million domestic, and then like what, 400 million something,
450 something.
Yeah, for worldwide, which is fantastic for a post-pandemic.
That's pretty fantastic, just in general.
And the one thing that I do like about quotation marks required reading kind of stories is the fact that you don't have to set up characters in new films.
Mm-hmm.
That are already existing. You can basically just say, this is where they're at right now, and then move on to the story. And you can get clearer, conciser stories the further you go in. Whenever you bring in characters that are secondary to the main character of whatever franchise you're in that time.
You just risk at some point, when does it become unwieldy, right?
Yeah.
But as Joel mentioned earlier, this is an excellent opportunity for some listener feedback.
Yeah. We'd love to hear from you.
We'd love to hear from you. You can hit us up on Facebook or Instagram, Spoilers Intended Podcast, or go to our website, spoilersintendedpodcast.com. We have a link to our Discord there, and jump in
and we engage a lot on that Discord.
We do, yes. So I think we covered required reading pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do we want to move into the main event here? A little Multiverse of Madness. Joel, you want to give us a synopsis?
Sure. So the maddening synopsis is that we very quickly get introduced into a character who has the native ability to transport herself between different universes in the multiverse.
Mm-hmm.
And she is being pursued by forces unknown and for her power. And she winds up in our home universe, the one that we've been telling stories in all this time. And she shows up being pursued near where Doctor Strange is. Strange intervenes. We have a large fight, and she knows Strange from another universe. And so she starts talking to him about her situation and her plight, and what things are happening to her, and maddening shenanigans ensue.
lots and lots of hijinks.
Yep.
So, on that note,
what are our scores?
Scorsese. So we we split this up into two different categories. We've got our technical review score and our entertainment value review. And the technical score is based on an average across our 4 pillars of review, that being spectacle, performance, score, and plot.
Mm-hmm.
And for this film, our technical score is a 7.2 out of 10.
Ooh, that's right below respectable.
That's decent. Yeah, I think if you hit about a 7.5, if you can break that threshold, that's kind of
75%. Yeah, it feels pretty good.
It feels like a grade you can C's get degrees.
7.2 is clearly there was a little bit of problems.
Yeah.
But it was still a passable film.
So on that note, some problems in the film, but what about the entertainment score?
Oh, so entertainment. We keep this separate because it could be very different. You could have a movie that's just objectively terrible, but you just love it to bits. And conversely, there could be a technical masterpiece that just didn't hit with you and you didn't personally enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
So these values can be different. This one is not. This is a 7.3 out of 10.
Oh, wow. I actually thought that they diverged and I misremembered. That is
okay. So talking about the film.
it was moderately enjoyable.
We were whelmed.
On aggregate between the three of us.
We were whelmed.
So required reading aside, basically, like we said earlier, you had to watch WandaVision to have any true context for the conflict in the film.
And like we were kind of stripping away at other things that happened. You have to vaguely know of the events of Endgame.
Yeah,
and Infinity War,
and kind of No Way. No, not really No Way Home. Mostly actually Loki.
Yeah, actually, I was Loki. Loki even isn't really. It's really just WandaVision.
That's the key piece you need.
Yeah.
There are some hints to here and there in What If.
It's sort of
pieces.
It's not any direct references because it's not the same versions of those characters.
Right. They just included some fun things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so like. I am probably the least MCU guy here. Maybe I don't know. Maybe Steven.
That's true, actually.
But I actually enjoyed it. Like I had zero expectations going in, and I think this is the best way to approach. I'll say like popcorn movies like this. Is you don't go in expecting anything. I don't know anything about comics. I don't know anything that I was expected to see. The only reason I was going because I know that Elizabeth Olsen, who is Wanda Maximoff. Yep.
She doesn't build robots.
Yeah. She was in the film, and that's pretty much why Holly and I wanted to go.
She went from being the least famous Olsen to becoming the most famous Olsen.
Yeah. And probably making the most money.
Maybe. I don't know. I haven't thought about that.
But the only reason why we went was because she was going to be in it. And I was not saddened by the lack of Wanda in the film. It was fantastic watching her be the Scarlet Witch that she always was meant to be.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a Doctor Strange fan. I like Doctor Strange.
He's a little bit too snarky for me.
Yeah, but I like the snark. I mean, it's
okay having one in Tony Stark, but having two in the same universe.
Tony Stark's gone now, so we're okay.
Wow, spoilers to Endgame
for a long time ago now. I feel pretty safe. But Benjamin Cumberbatch is he's really good at the smug, snarky,
he is
arrogant, and he nails that just consistently, and I enjoy that. I like the character of Doctor Strange too. I don't always particularly like the magicians in Marvel and DC offerings because they're oftentimes just there to fill holes.
Magic does fill a lot of plot holes.
It can spackle over.
It can also create a lot of other plot holes,
cause issues. But his brand, and especially the first Doctor Strange movie, the way it ended, I really, really liked the way they played with that and kind of the cleverness involved. It's not brute force application of, well, I'm just going to punch you until you lose. There is always a twist or a clever or an outsmart moment that happens. And that's really where the character shines, not in just the brute power on power applications.
Yeah. Right.
So that's the type of character I really enjoy. So yeah, I was there for it and I liked what they did. I think WandaVision was a great TV show, right? I think we're all
it's definitely the best that they've had to offer.
Yeah, we're
so far. I think
pretty well on board with that theory. Others may object and put forth other names, and that's okay. They can be wrong.
There's only one other contender, and we haven't talked about that one yet. No. So Joel, what did you think?
So I also don't have any comic background in either of the main characters.
Okay, so we're pretty much all around the same.
Doctor Strange or Wanda and the Scarlet Witch. And so coming at this from just consuming MCU material for those characters, I was actually fairly disappointed in the character writing all around for this film. There is a key transition from where we left off with the character of Wanda at the end of WandaVision to where we pick up with the character of Wanda here, that there is an important change in the character, an important step in her arc that occurs off screen. And I am extremely disappointed in that.
Yeah. That's totally fair.
And because what you end up is that you end up with the character in a reduced state in that, I guess in terms of possibility, right? Like they have coalesced into what they're going to be. They have become in terms of their character
arc. You get to see the arc on screen.
And for a character of that importance, that feels really cheap.
It did feel like the plot specifically skipped a couple steps. Yeah. It almost every other scene.
Fast.
Well, it's not even that it was fast. It's that they were skipping over important things that mattered.
That's really what I mean. They wanted to get to 10, so they went 1, 3, 8, 9 there.
Yeah. And then the emotional investment for Strange in the first film was fairly self-evident, and it played really well. He's been crippled by this accident, and he
has a lot of emotional
He has no identity left over because his entire identity was in his ability to do stuff with his hands, right?
Yes.
And so he's rebuilding himself from the ground up in terms of self-identity, which is very compelling. Whereas in this film, he doesn't have really any sort of emotional depth to his art.
No, he is Marvel's newest
Tony Stark
baby mentor.
Tony Stark.
Baby mentor.
Tony Stark.
In that, we have the young up-and-coming Tom He's So Hot Holland. Let's put Spider-Man with Doctor Strange. Oh,
Tony Stark.
But anyway, so like for it to be a story about primarily these two characters, I felt neither one had a satisfactory arc, which was very disappointing.
That's fair. So one thing that we actually haven't mentioned yet is the director, which is Sam Raimi. He did the first 3 Spider-Man films. He also did Evil Dead, and he pulled a lot of horror tropes from the Evil Dead series.
And I really appreciate it.
I did too. Now, this is not a film you take your kids, younger kids to.
Yeah, so like this film is rated PG-13. And on the violence and gore side of it, it really pushed.
It is very close to the R rating.
Yeah, and it's really interesting too, because there is a certain level of cursing that is present in most of the slightly more adult Marvel films.
Yeah.
That this one actually pulled back from
because
I think it's in order to keep it from going to R because they pushed it so far on the violence and the gore.
That's something that Lauren mentioned when we left the theater was, it was PG-13 and they never used their F-bomb, right?
Mm-hmm. And they even like used background noises to manually bleep out some more mild cursing.
Right.
Yeah.
Probably because the cursing was there and then it got screened and they said, oh, this is going to be R.
Yeah.
Because that is how far it pushes it on kind of the violence and some of the gore aspects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sam Raimi really pushed hard on his very unique directing style, which I really like.
Mm-hmm.
And there are going to be kind of split down the middle, I think, people, because it is definitely one of the probably the most mature for graphic violence in MCU, period.
Definitely.
And then it is a very different MCU film than what you're used to seeing. And with that probably comes a lot of detractors or a lot of people that like me that I was like, oh, this is fantastic. Because it's like an artsy director taking the reins of a generally homogenized franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, from my perspective, right, I'm not a horror movie film
neither am I.
This is kind of the right amount of horror because there's a lot of things.
Horror restrained by, okay, but you have to be PG-13.
Well, it's not just that.
And it's just MCU.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are horror or very intense films that really aren't, that violent or gory, and they're still terrifying.
Yeah.
So this is kind of that perfect amount, a little bit of as a treat, where you kind of have to accept because superheroes and the powers they wield are at a very base level kind of horrifying because this is one person who could do this, or something happens when, you're a child and you're still learning your powers and you just kill someone or whatnot. There is an element of horror associated with having this much power. So to just kind of ignore it and avoid it, and it's always the shining beacon of hope Superman is kind of boring. So you have to have a little bit of this for flavor, right? Spice.
Yeah. Joel, did you want to add anything? No. Well, I'm just going to keep going then. No, I won't go that long. Like the thing that's really fun whenever you have these kind of like horror tropes and everything that you get kind of thrown into a franchise that you're not used to seeing, have those, you also know that it's not going to, this is not a horror film, right? Yeah. You know that it's going to end in a big CGI fight, or it's going to end, it's not going to be like, well, everyone's a zombie now and everyone dies and it's just a sad thing. Like, so you can, like, as a director, you can really kind of throw in some of those fun things without it being too risky.
Yeah, you're on rails. They have a formula that you must follow because the formula is how you make money.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, unless I'm dreaming, we're moving on to the intermission. If you want to avoid the corrupting influence of spoilers, then we're glad you stuck with us this far. Before you go, if you liked what you heard, check out the rest of our content at spoilersintendedpodcast.com. On the other hand, if this is the version of you who ignores all warnings and forges ahead into the darkness, then grab hold of the nearest interdimensional teenager and get ready for the madness.
Alrighty, everyone, welcome back from the intermission. Hope you enjoyed a quick little break. If you didn't get the message, it is all spoilers all the time, all the way down from here.
And let's get strange.
We are going to get a little weird with it. I don't know about, he just like, it's clobbering time or something. I don't know. Okay.
I don't know. There was a Fantastic Four reference in the film.
There was. We're past the spoiler wall and you can say that.
I know. It was so hard for me to like not talk specifics when I was talking about like Wanda. And I'm just like, I love her being the force of nature that she is in this film.
But that could go both ways, right? You could play that both ways.
Oh yeah. I mean,
but yes, like it's a dangerous line to skirt because we didn't get a lot of that in trailers.
Yeah. Well, because like you think that she's gonna like join them and like in the search for whatever.
What a twist! So moving forward, spectacle. First topic up, and who wants it first?
I'll take it first.
Go for it.
I'm already talking.
Get out of your way.
Spectacle. I actually really liked a lot of the visuals. I give it a 9.
Okay.
The actual CGI and everything like that was very well put together. There was never really the kind of the plasticky CGI that you always worry about seeing, especially towards the end, where progressively all MCUs kind of end up where they're just like, hey, guess what? It is CGI time,
it's
baby.
It's clobbered time.
This is what you came here for.
Yeah. So I'm just going to go ahead and take it. My favorite part of the film was the Doctor Strange versus Doctor Strange fight, where they are throwing musical notes at each other.
Yes. And making music. And not just throwing notes. It's making music.
It was so cool.
We're going to come back to this point while we're talking about the score too.
Yeah. Like yes. I have that down as the score. But it was such a sweet idea. And do you need it? No. But who cares?
Well, I mean, it's when you're having these fights, right? And you're having to constantly one up, well, the last film had a fight that was like this, and this other film had a fight like this. How do we make our fights interesting?
Yeah.
Right. So this absolutely 100% did that. It was just, okay, so there's instruments of music in this room, this lounge, this den area. And we have sheet music. And we're just gonna go wild and crazy. We're gonna have a classic wizard's duel, so to speak, and the theme is music.
Yeah.
And it was like on paper, you just write that idea down, it automatically gets a pass. That's a fantastic idea. And it was executed, if not flawlessly, at least very well.
Yeah, it was real close to being a lot of fun. I didn't. The way
it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, the way that sounded was not how I meant to have it.
I gave it a 9. So this was close to being a lot of fun.
I almost enjoyed this.
So hold on. No, we're not done yet. I'm jumping on this part too. I love how Marvel had this moment of, you know what we don't have in our movies? We don't have a big score. We don't have the music, and we got to get in here some way. And the only way we know how to is just a bunch of CGI
and fighting,
and let's throw it in there. But it also fits. It works plot wise because it's not just two magicians dueling; it's the same person dueling.
Yeah.
So at some point, if again, I talked about this in the pre-spoiler arena of it can't just be brute force on brute force because theoretically they're roughly evenly matched. You have to get weird with it. You have to do something.
You have to get strange.
Oh, it's almost like it was built in. You have to do something funky. So it works there too. And it was well executed and it was fun.
Yeah.
Unlike Andrew's opinion. You did it to yourself.
I know I did. All right. So what did you give it?
I gave it an 8.
Okay.
Most of the same points. I think we dodged most of the plasticky effects. And it was mostly, a big point is it's consistent, right? Once we accept that this is what reality looks like, it needs to look like that the whole way through. And it did that almost the whole way. The very first fight, Wong gets thrown into a car.
Oh, yeah. That one
was rough.
Yeah, that one did look good.
Apparently they don't do those well. I don't know if it's the blending that's hard.
That's just hard to do.
Yeah. The thing that I did want to highlight, though, for CGI was our very first multiverse jump that we get to experience.
That was so cool.
That was well done. Just blasting through universe. We're paint now. We're doing these.
We're
really
animated
pretty.
now.
Yeah, it was really, really pretty. And I dinged them because we never really came back to any of those concepts.
I mean, okay, so like this is... Whenever
you can't be in the paint universe, it's not going to work.
No. But we never.
Well, you could if you were in everything, everywhere, all the time.
Yes, and that is actually to its detriment that we just had that movie come out
all at once. Sorry,
because that film did like all of that kind of stuff just better.
Yeah, just consistently better, and they didn't story-wise. They didn't make much use of it, and that's a plot consideration later. But also ding them just because everything after that moment, we were like, oh, this is so cool. We're like blasting through all these different universes. Everything after that was just pretty much just, this is just a basic standard world. Stuff's a little shinier and plants grow over here,
and that's the problem with quotation marks multiverse things is because of the fact that unless you start already weird, like let's say like Into the Spider-Verse, right? Where it is already an animated medium, so you can do a lot more fun stuff just baseline.
Yeah.
So your reality, the audience's reality can break a little bit easier with that. Whereas,
well, it's also easier to keep it consistent because it's all animated.
Yeah. So whenever you have live actors on a soundstage or whatever, and then you're like, all right, we're going to turn you into paint now. Like you can't, like Joel said, you can't film that.
Yeah.
Like
it's also like from a plot perspective though.
It's much safer because we came here to see Doctor Strange, not the plant that is Doctor Strange.
Yeah, but also the idea, the way that lore-wise it is constructed is you have branching choices that is creating this infinite array of possibilities, right? And so, but like in order to have a universe where people are paint, you have to go so far back. To get a branch that creates sentient paint.
Or it could be happening right now. You don't know, Joel.
That in terms of like the ease of getting to that, in terms of proximity, if you think of it that way, where a close one is where things are almost identical and a far one is where things are drastically different, then it doesn't make any sense that you would go through the one that is just unimagitably different. You know,
that sounds like we might have a plot issue later on to talk about.
Does sound that way.
Joel,
however, I also gave this an 8 for spectacle.
Yeah, that's respectable.
Respectable spectacle.
Respectable spectacle.
And I thought that in the absence of, there was a bit of kind of just the generic, I'm going to punch you really hard kind of fighting that was going on outside of the couple of really iconic fights, like the music fight and the Spirits of the Damned fight.
Yeah, the first fight with the tentacle monster Cthulhu or whatever you want to call it.
Just kind of,
we just had a kaiju fight.
It was just like him and Wong just kind of like doing it just didn't feel like anything that was interesting.
Well, they weren't mystic wizards. They were more like martial artists with longer weaponry.
Yeah. But anyway, I think on the positive side, something we haven't hit on directly so far is just the brutality of the Wanda versus Illuminati fight sequence. And that is something that I really enjoyed and I thought was a really good touch because in this universe of fantastically powerful beings, we don't have dismemberments. And there's going to be dismemberments.
Everyone who is fragile just takes the punch anyways because they have to, because they should get blown apart.
So talking about at the beginning of the film, not the very beginning, but when you referenced Wong getting thrown up into the car, right?
Yeah.
They haven't taken the time to cast like defense spells on themselves.
Yeah, no, they're just
he's
people.
He's just a dude. Like his back is broken from that impact.
Yeah,
and you don't even get explanation somewhere in the universe of it's just a ritual they go through where they have cast strengthening on themselves.
But the thing is, and that kind of gets belied because if you go to What If, there is an episode concerning Doctor Strange where he does apply protection spells to himself, and it's a key part of the way that the fight unfolds later on in that episode. And
that's
so
required reading I did not.
So like you can do that kind of thing and it actually enhances the story as opposed to just taking up time.
Well, and it also gives you tension, right? They have the scene with the assault on Kamertage where you have a shield. And
that also didn't look very good.
No,
I probably should have knocked it a point on that. I totally forgot about that.
There's the pressure of the actual shield and also how do you circumvent it and how Wanda circumvents it. And you could add these elements instead of it's just he's Doctor Strange, he always just bounces off things. Well, what if it was he has these spells and he only has so much of a reserve before he's in actual danger,
right? And like you can depict that visually because like in What If he had like little glowing runes that were on his face, and as he was taking hits, some of the runes were falling off.
Right, and it looks really good visually.
Yeah, and you get progress. So you feel like that you can tell where in the fight you are.
And there's a time limit on the fight.
Yeah. So it adds tension and it also adds interest because you feel the progression of time.
It's almost like limitations birth creativity.
Well, they birth good storytelling at any rate.
Which is creativity.
In theory, at least.
But yeah, like the Illuminati fight was fun just because Wanda is just this insurmountable wall that they have never been able to experience before. And Doctor Strange is like, no, you guys don't, no, you don't get it. And they're like, no, it's fine. I'm like, oh, Because it's gonna be a bad time.
In a world of ridiculous power scales, and sometimes people on the scale don't realize how far down they are until they're told.
Yeah. Well, and that was Wanda's way of being reasonable.
Yes, up to that point, it was very reasonable. We done with spectacle? We
let's move on to performance.
Performance. Andrew went first last time. I'm going to go first this time. I'm going to change up a little bit. I gave it an 8.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So
I have to know.
I don't know. I don't know that anyone got a ton to work with. Okay.
Uh-huh.
But I think our two mains sold out with what they had.
Two mains being Wanda and Benedict.
Yeah.
Ooh,
again, I'm not prepared to tell you that they got a great story to work with, and we're going to get to that a little further down. But up to this point, do I expect Doctor Strange to be the smug, arrogant? Yeah. Is he? Yeah. Do I expect Wanda to be the
emotionally damaged,
unhinged mother, essentially? Yeah. Yeah. And I think we had a couple of good pieces with that they did well. And I'm just going to say it. That's what I said.
All right. So I am super curious. I don't know which direction you're reacting this harshly from, Andrew. So I'm going to go ahead and give my piece, and then we'll end on yours, and we can be shocked together. But I also gave it an 8.
Oh my God.
Because I thought that Elizabeth Olsen absolutely knocked it out of the park.
Oh no, she did.
She
was
did
fantastic.
She did not get as much as I wanted her to get, but what she put on the screen was fantastic. In terms of her emotional range.
She was the saving grace of the film.
We know where the score is going now.
Yeah, no.
I was pretty sure.
Cumberbatch, I thought, did a good job with given even less. Because he had to play the same character 4 times.
Yeah, and that's part of where
all of them were distinct.
Yeah, you give it give it some extra because all of our different strangers were different. And they even, while they behaved believably as like I recognize, oh, that's Doctor Strange, they were also different.
Yeah.
Like when you get into this whole where you have to fight this in this scene, you're the good guy. In that scene, you're also the bad guy. Coincidentally, you're fighting each other. Like that's an extra step of where you got to do something different. You got to have something.
And so while there have been recently and other examples of multiverse stuff where you have the same actor playing the same character, different ways that maybe did it better, I still thought he did it admirably. For the whole cast of supporting characters, I don't think they were given anything, and so I don't think they did much with what they weren't given. So,
so I give it a 6.
Okay, all right.
That's really not that massive a drop off.
No, it's not. I definitely don't think it was an 8. But no, basically, Elizabeth Olsen
you gave it a 6.
Was the saving grace of the film.
Mm-hmm.
She had a fantastic performance, and I'm sorry that she had to deal with basically everyone else.
And that's even admitting that she didn't really have a complete arc because half the first part of the arc is kind of cut off. In the film,
and
it just doesn't exist.
Well, okay, and that's the thing is like there wasn't any quotation bad performances here. I still gave it a 6. It was really more in the fact that it felt like, especially both Benedicts were kind of phoning it in, and Cumberbatch only got really like one. Like just his scene with himself when he's fighting himself or whatever, like that is the only one that actually had any kind of like emotional weight to it.
And like I lay that at the writing, but it's really hard to parse those apart at some point.
But other than that, like every other character just kind of existed on screen.
Yeah.
And I just was not impressed in the least. I mean, like it was kind of nice. I mean, it was fun seeing Patrick Stewart on screen, but he wasn't
for
in the film
3 seconds as an idiot.
He wasn't in the film long enough for him to even really like calculate as a performance score.
Right.
Yeah. I wouldn't count anyone in those
and the Illuminati or anything like that. I mean, like,
and I think that hurt it too in terms of performance is that you had a lot of. I mean, you had Patrick Stewart, you had Krasinski, you had these
objectively good actors
and actresses that are either being brought in here new as fresh references or referencing other franchises or referencing ways that the MCU could have gone different. And we just got to spend so little time with them that their performance doesn't really have any room to breathe or register at all.
Yeah. And unfortunately, like Rachel McAdams, I don't know how much they paid her to come back to the MCU, but they had to pay her a lot. And she just, I mean, like she kind of played the same role that she did the last time, except she was just slightly more integral to the plot.
Tell you what, though, I really did love the one look that she gave when Strange has left her wedding to go fight the monster, which is just like a block away.
Yeah.
And like she just gives this huff, like, of course, Steven made this about him.
Yep.
Somehow he still finds a way.
Yeah. Well, and then her husband's like, "Oh, cool."
Yeah.
Like,
I'm a big fan. Oh, great. Yeah, that's just what I want to hear. But speaking of the waste, so I mean, Baron Mordo is, I'm going to butcher his name because I always do, Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Sure.
Yeah, that's as close as I'm going to get to it. And he's a really good actor.
Yeah.
And again, like I
absolutely loved his performance in the first Doctor Strange
in
film.
First Strange, there was a lot going on between the two of them, and in this, we kind of he's a throwaway character essentially.
Yeah, and
you just took some legitimately some pretty good people on screen. You just didn't give them any time, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of those. It can't help the score, and it kind of almost hurts it because like, well, you gave me you hung it out there and then just zipped it away from me.
Oh, I will say the two kids that played Wanda's kids, they actually did a really good job. Because they're just kids.
It's basically bit parts. And they definitely featured a lot more heavily in WandaVision.
Yeah,
had a lot more screen time there. But yeah, like I have no complaints with the child actors in this.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's time to move on to the score. And I think Joel...
I've not gone first yet.
Joel gets it.
All right. So I gave score an 8.
Okay.
I felt that generally speaking, it's kind of your run-of-the-mill MCU score. Like it's just not anything super fantastic. It gets the job done with a couple of big breakouts. One of which being the music fight.
Yeah.
Because the entire fight not only is about visually manipulating music, but about actually manipulating the sounds in the space. And so that plays out through the score where they have the music following the attacks that you see on screen. And that sort of integration of the different building blocks of the piece, the visual, the acting, the music, all coming together into this really seamless product is not something you see very often. And I was very impressed.
Yeah. I'm going to jump in because I think we're going to scale up here, I think. I gave it an 8.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the big thing for me, because a lot of the similar points as Joel, it's fairly sort of standard MCU stuff, except the tinges of horror. I think they did a good job. Even the music scene, the initial, when he gets blasted back through the music into the piano, he hits the piano, and it starts into a bit of the horror bit. I can't do it just with my own mouth, but it's fine. Yeah, a little bit of that. It dips into horror music in that moment, and some of the music that they're passing back and forth is horror. But other bits of the movie had pieces where you would expect there to be kind of the grand, Marvel-esque, superhero-esque music, but it would always have maybe a little twist to it, or to kind of die off into maybe a little bit of that horror tinging. I like seeing that connection to kind of the just a little taste of horror that ran through the movie. Andrew?
So I also gave it an 8.
Oh, okay. Well, no, it's parody.
Yeah. Honestly, the score was pretty fun. It had like, I like good sweeping scores, and did a really good job with that. The horror elements and stuff really added to it, I felt. Danny Elfman did the score for this, and he did a fantastic job, I thought. I mean, overall, like I didn't really have any complaints. Probably the only reason I knocked it 2 points is because there's no specific leitmotif or theme that I can hum or listen to outside of watching the film.
Yeah, there's nothing, you exit the theater, you don't have a specific thing in your head.
Yeah, and and that's kind of the theme with MCU films, is there's really only one theme, which is the Avengers theme, and not every film is an Avengers movie.
Yeah, so it's hard to put that in there because you don't have the assemble moment on screen.
Yeah, and I still have that track on on my epic playlist that I have on Spotify, and I wouldn't put any of this music on that.
But like as to kind of talk about what we're missing out on with that being the case, imagine, if you will, a world where every character in the original Avengers ensemble had their own distinct, recognizable, fantastic leitmotif, musical theme that all got woven together to create the Avengers theme. Wouldn't that just be chillingly awesome?
And even when you only have 2 or 3 members of it on stage, you can still put those together and make something out of it. Yeah, it's a little sad.
A lot of work, a lot of, but like ultimately the artistry that you get out of it is that's how you make art, is a lot of work. So
and just for context, for those of you who have not heard of Danny Elfman before, you're probably very familiar with his work from The Nightmare Before Christmas or Batman or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory or Edward Scissorhands.
Which Batman? 1989?
1989.
Yeah, so like the one that everybody references for musicality.
Yeah. Beetlejuice, Mars Attacks, Spider-Man, Spider-Man 3, Spider-Man 2. He's done a lot of stuff. He did Batman Returns. Like, he is very good at what he does, and he loves the kind of Tim Burton-esque, horror-esque kind of films. Yeah, and he does a good job with those.
Yeah.
So,
Well, moving forward onto the plot. I think Joel has to go last.
Okay. So based on the scores that we have, and based on the average that we have landed on, his score must be abysmally low.
Must be.
Joel has to go last.
I'll go first.
Go for it.
And I'm only gonna touch on a little bit because Joel has 2 pages.
The reason he's going last is so we can eat up some of that material. Hopefully,
he has 2
and I'll
pages
just be like,
of notes.
Okay, this is what you missed.
Yeah. Okay. So I gave it a 6. Mostly because the plot just felt really convoluted, and there's a lot of conveniences that bothered me throughout, especially at the end whenever Strange is like, all right, I'm going to go under and I'm going to dream move over to the zombie me, which has probably only been sitting there for like, a day, and now he's like fully decomposed and all this other kind of stuff. Anyways, but then like, he's like, you need to protect me from the spirits of the damned. So good luck with that.
Yeah, no context.
No context, no information, no like, hey, this is how you do it.
And she didn't even have an opportunity for those reactions, like where he like goes into the trance, like, well, what do you mean to that? And they didn't even do that.
Yeah,
she just accepted it.
So then she's like, okay, yeah, sure. And then like immediately bad things start happening, and then she just picks up some random vase or something.
Yeah, and like
puts a candle in it.
She mentions, oh, that's the vase of blah blah blah. Like she knows what this magical artifact is.
Hold on.
No, she is the Illuminati version multiverse.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
And she does talk about that the technology is researched from the sands of Vishnanti. A magical artifact. So she has familiarity with some stuff. So that's what he's relying on, but they really go to great pains to not make it obvious.
Yeah.
So it's like, so the one thing that could help her defend herself against the spirits of the damned just happens to be like right next to her.
Right.
Whenever she's being attacked by these things. Okay, come on. Let's get over that.
Yeah.
Also I understand that they do talk about it at the end of the film whenever he is talking to America and saying, hey, you actually can control it because you got us to the right places at the right times. Whenever we multiverse jumped and everything like that, I still feel that's implying that she had an idea of what she needed to do, where like her power at the time was only working whenever she was scared.
Oh yeah. No, like there's definitely a couple of instances of, how did I write it? I liked the way I wrote it.
It felt very unearned.
Yeah, no. So it was try harder and believe in yourself. That was the conflict resolution, at least twice.
You're right. It was.
Yeah. And that is so unsatisfying.
Because like whenever I watch shows that have basically the conflict resolution of, oh, the power of friendship, or just believe in yourself.
The power was inside you all along.
Like that's a kid's show.
Well, or there has to have been some serious emotional trauma, and we have to have really explored it. We have to spend some time. Right, we have to wallow in this trauma.
Maybe the issue is self-confidence, but you have to establish that the issue is self-confidence.
We don't need just one little trip down memory lane, literally.
And also, one person telling you to have self-confidence does not give you self-confidence.
Especially, there's not a huge, and there's some relationship there, but not really.
Yeah.
your mother comes back or something. Yeah, okay, cool. That one, yeah, we'll come through with this. But
yeah. The other thing is too, and I mostly just have a problem with this just general trope in action films is if you don't see the character die, that they're not dead. And one, we didn't like whenever she pushed Wong off the cliff.
You knew he was coming back.
You knew he was coming back. You know that there's no way that he's dead. And then, they cut to him, like probably 20 or 30 minutes later, and he's just hanging there.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
He's laying on an impossibly small ledge.
Yeah.
That he didn't bounce off of because physics didn't work that moment.
And again, his back is not broken because he's super Wong, apparently.
Little bloodied. No big deal.
But, there's the same thing with Wanda whenever everything crumbles on her. She's not dead. She's going to come back.
I mean, maybe.
No, she's totally good.
Well,
you did not. Okay. She was not stabbed. And she did not die a slow death, and she did not have the final being a villain redeeming factors of I just wanted to love my kids, and then last breath. Like everything crumbles on top of her. She is the Scarlet Witch. She is literally more powerful than Thanos. Like that's it.
So,
I mean, I could see it go either way.
Okay, well, you know what? I'm gonna jump in.
Okay,
I gave it a 6.
Okay,
there's a theme here. One of my objections, again, is the multiverses were very same, except for when we needed, some cameos.
Same, but still different.
But still same.
Yeah.
And honestly, this is a lost opportunity. We talked about in the pre-spoiler wall the difficulty and the unwieldiness sometimes of sustaining these stories for so long, right?
Yeah.
And one of those factors we didn't really cover is, well, you have to lock these actors in for long contracts.
Yeah.
They have to keep showing up. And in this process, they're becoming names and they have opportunities to do something else and make money doing other things, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had an opportunity in all these multiverses. What if instead of it being Elizabeth Olsen possessing Elizabeth Olsen, it's Elizabeth Olsen possesses somebody else as Wanda. And now if this universe's version of Wanda has actually killed herself, well, now the other universes can come out seeking, and now we have new stories with a new character, and it means it means Elizabeth Olsen could go do something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the contract looks like for her.
I mean,
at the moment.
Doctor Who's been doing this successfully for a very long time.
For a very long time, yeah. It's just not that difficult, and well, I get it. We have some pretty good people on screen doing this. We want to make use of them to the maximum extent. At some point, again, as far forward thinking as the whole series has been, they probably should have been looking at that maybe.
Well, at the same time, though, one thing that I do applaud the general outline of the MCU for is giving characters an end, right?
Yeah.
And
and like actually killing them.
Right. Yeah. Like so with Tony Stark and with Steve Rogers, those characters are gone, they're done. Mm-hmm. We're not expecting to see any return by those characters at any point.
And I would point out that Steve Rogers was neither stabbed nor any of that. He died of old age.
He had a clear ending.
He had a closure.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what that does though is that provides the out that you're talking about of, well, we're no longer tied to these actors.
Right. But it also you have some awkwardness of passing the mantle, right? When the other character is still just standing next to them.
Yeah.
And the universal swaps gives you an out, right? Free out.
It does.
So I'm gonna have another objection to the Souls of the Damned.
Okay.
And it's not on the side of Strange or Rachel McAdams. Christine's the character.
Christine, yeah, I can't even remember her name.
What it is. It's the other side, right? So one, we don't totally know how these things work. Is it the first time you use the book? Is it the first time you dreamwalk? Is it just because you are
I think it was just because he was dreamwalking into a corpse.
It's because he was reanimating the dead.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was becoming a necromancer.
See, I wasn't sure if how again, because
that was the implication that I got on screen.
Yeah, that's
because Wanda didn't have any problems with that
we know of.
So, and that was actually my curiosity was, well, if this is associated with the book, then how does throwing something she's already experienced at her, like mess with her at all?
Yeah.
Just be like, oh, I've been here, done that.
No, I think it was specifically the corpse walking.
But that's the thing, though, is Wanda.
But then how does he know that that's going to be a problem?
That's okay. So he knows a lot of stuff in this film that he has no business knowing.
He's not the Sorcerer Supreme. He does not have access to these knowledges.
Well, he was the Sorcerer Supreme.
No.
I'm not even talking about, this is like stuff that nobody in his universe knows, that he looks at one piece of evidence and he's like, aha, I have discovered a universal truth.
Well, but didn't he, like, at the end of Strange 1, he was the Sorcerer Supreme?
Yes. The reason he wasn't the Sorcerer Supreme at this one is because
he died.
He was gone for 5 years.
He was dusted.
Yeah. So I guess he was for a little while.
Yeah. So I mean, like in theory, he should have some level of knowledge.
He doesn't ever do the required reading. He does the
of course
reading.
Not.
He does the reading he's interested in.
Yeah, he wings it.
But like my biggest thing with reanimating the corpse was the fact that like the body had literally just died like that day, and then
now that's not.
But you don't know there's an undisclosed amount of time that passes between whenever they leave the normal.
He was unconscious.
Universe.
Didn't they say that he was unconscious for like 2 days in captivity?
But a corpse does not decay that fast.
But my point isn't to the amount of time from when they found it to wherever they ended up with. My point is how long it's been dead, because we don't actually know how long America's been in that universe from the point of his dream.
But actually, I will say one other thing that sort of is in defense of that. That body was riddled with some sort of venom from the creature that killed him. He also gets
stabbed by the creature that's
that is totally fair, and
we'll wipe that one off.
I will wipe that one from the record.
Yeah.
But it's still here. It's just wiped the record from me.
It's just kind of
it's like when the judge says strike that from the record, but the jury heard it. We all know what happened. All right, Joel. Take some cracks at this.
Okay, so you guys both gave this a 6, which is a number divisible by 3, and I also gave it a number divisible by 3,
which is 3.
So
we still haven't breached the below 3.
We're pegging the floor here.
Okay, so let's just start going down the list.
Give us the bullets.
Dreams that are always windows into other lives in the multiverse. Okay, that is established in the film based on one piece of evidence that the thing that he dreamed actually happened, and he dreamed about this girl who.
Oh, no, there's more pieces of evidence than that. Bad Doctor Strange says, "You know that dream where you're falling?"
Oh, but that was later.
That was
no. See, I've got this. That's under another bullet point. But anyway, so like he takes a look at one piece of evidence, and then he lights upon a underlying foundational truth about the way that the multiverse works, without any sort of other supporting evidence.
Wait, is he the one that lands on that?
Yeah, he just says, "Oh, well, dreams, blah blah blah."
I thought America told him that.
And then after he does that, every other character he meets already knows it. Everyone. It doesn't make any freaking sense.
Well, also,
sorry, go ahead.
If you consider the fact that you have Loki with the TVA, where multiverses aren't allowed to exist, and people were still dreaming.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like it's completely nonsensical.
The timing of the Loki multiverse thing, again, is one of my complaints about everything looking the same, right? We had Loki, we got Gator Loki, we had the Loki where he killed Thor at the age of 12 or whatever, and then we go into this, and every Wanda has powers and has these kids, and if they live in the same house, they reuse the set.
Yeah.
And like at least have her grow up on the West Coast or something. Like, come on.
I thought that we already talked about the Illuminati fight pacing. That there was really, I don't know, it for one thing, they've already established that the power levels between Wanda and Captain Marvel are at least in the same weight class.
Generally, yeah.
And it did not feel that way in this fight.
At least not for this Marvel.
Well, not for this Marvel.
And so there was definitely a sense of like kind of a lack of investment because you already haven't spent much time with those characters, right?
Well, it's all like, okay, from a combat perspective, it could be just the surprise factor of, this person is way stronger than I was expecting it to be.
But I'm really just talking about it from the perspective of what reaction do you get from the audience?
Yeah.
And so it felt like there was to me, it seemed like there was a pacing problem with that fight because it didn't have a lot of twists and turns. It was just combatant 1 comes up, Wanda kills them. Combatant 2 comes up, Wanda kills them. And so forth and so on until they're all gone. And there's no variation of that. There's no tactical interest in that. There's nothing to draw the audience in and make them feel tension, right?
Well, because I think that there wasn't meant to be tension in the fight because you already know that Wanda, like the second that Doctor Strange is like, hey, you need to be careful. I need to help you fight Wanda because we cannot beat her. Mm-hmm. And they're like, no, we got it. You already know that every single one in that room is dead.
You know they're screwed.
And it's not about what happens in the fight. It is the inevitability of watching Wanda finish what she came to do.
Well, in that case, maybe it was too long, right?
Now that I do agree with.
So like it either needed to it needed to fish or cut bait, right? Like it either needed to garner more investment or be a lot shorter.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that because her Captain Carter should not have given her any problem at all
ever.
Yeah.
Not even a blink of an eye.
I also really liked the shield throw. It doesn't work. 30 seconds later, the shield throw, it doesn't work. Is this all you've got? Like,
yes, the answer is yes.
It is
yes.
always funny in the MCU because, you know, not Captain Carter in this case, but Captain America in general is you know, top Avenger type thing. And he is so far down the power scale of so many things out there.
We haven't even started talking about Hawkeye.
We haven't even gotten into the dude with the bow. Yeah. Right? And the sort of risks that you are taking as a super serum enhanced soldier, et cetera. I mean, you know, like Winter Soldier, like you got like a bionic arm, bro. Like you can shoot a gun good. That's nice. You know, the Falcon, you can fly around and fast, and it just makes it easy to swat you out. Like there are so many characters who are so far down the power scale
compared to like Wanda or Captain Marvel.
And it's nice to see that thrown out there. It either need to be faster or not.
And the reason why Captain Carter lived for so long is because she is an actor and a character that people know more.
Right, and they like.
So they wanted her to have a quotation marks fight, even though it is an inevitability that she is going to die.
Yeah.
And hold on, I'm not done objecting right now.
I will put my notes away.
We have another problem. So Strange and Mordo fight, right?
Yeah.
And they fall down the
pit of Carcoon,
the trench that separates the ones on trial from the
It's a drainage ditch. Okay,
it's the ditch that's in Jurassic Park to stop the T-Rex from getting to the road.
It's a cattle ditch.
Yeah.
So they fall in there, right? And then Strange parkours off of him up the wall and gets out. And I initially thought, oh, Mordo's knocked out, right? That's the only reason. He's yelling and screaming at him as he leaves. Like earlier in the fight, he literally does the thing where he steps on air with the magic. Like, dude, you could just walk out of the hole.
He's got one of the bracelets keeping him from using his magic.
Yeah, but where's the other bracelet?
It's on Strange. So what happened is he used one of Mordo's attacks to break it. And one of them came off of him. So he was like still restrained by one of them, which dampened his powers, but he was able to.
I wanted to object to this. I guess I have to allow it now.
Continue,
Joel. Okay, continue with your dissertation.
So on general like major event plot issues, the last one that I've got here is Wanda destroying the Darkhold in every universe.
That doesn't make any sense at all.
Not at all. So like
we destroyed one Darkhold in that universe.
Right. So what she did is she destroyed the temple that was the first place that those spells were written down.
Right.
Yeah.
But like there's got to be another one of those in every other universe. If
there's a Darkhold in the other universe, then theoretically there must be the temple where it was written.
And so there's some sort of indications that the Scarlet Witch is a being that like America doesn't exist in everywhere, right?
But then she does.
Well, Wanda does.
Well, okay, yeah,
but not.
But she has powers.
Well, no, but this, again, this
is
is like Jean Grey versus the Phoenix,
right?
Which is it's totally wasted on
It is very much that same storyline.
It is.
I like the second you said that, my mind just kind of went blank, and I was like, yes,
those
are words that I've heard.
But anyway, so like so there's some potential to twist the narrative and say, well, she has an innate connection to all realities, but they didn't talk about that. They didn't foreshadow that nothing there. And so, and then again, Strange looks at the one piece of evidence that this book that's in the universe that he's trapped in now burns up, and he's like, oh, she destroyed it everywhere. We're safe. Thank goodness. It's like,
jolly good job done.
You have no idea what you're talking about. Stop. But then the rest of the stuff is all like the character writing, because like I talked about, Wanda, like she starts out in the second act of her story at the beginning of the film. And that's unsatisfying, because like I really wanted a moment where she has been convinced she could do things peaceably. she could find a solution that everyone is happy with, and it could work. And you as the audience can see it working, and you can see everyone being happy. And then someone else makes a choice that pushes her, and she's like, okay, now we're done.
And I'm no longer reasonable.
Like that would have been so satisfying.
And I really feel like, because there's a lot of objections to the end of WandaVision, which I don't want to spoil, because that's not what we're behind a spoiler wall for, but there are objections that kind of she got off light in a sense.
Yeah.
And I really feel like, because a lot of people are like, oh, well, it's like, but what she was doing was horrible. And
I mean, she is a soft villain.
Right. And I feel like the people writing this movie took that and kind of took that feedback and said, okay, well, she was just being a bad person, but she wasn't per se like, so there are villains and there are villains, right? There's the villain who's convinced they are righteous and nothing is going to change their mind.
And genocide is the only thing that
right, or dissuade them. And then there's a villain who's kind of like Wanda, where it's kind of like she's gone down this path and this is the path she's chosen, but there are other options, and she's not super sold that she's definitely doing that. I mean, she gets broken by just her kids crying, right?
Yeah.
It's she's not full commit to this concept as much as she wants to claim she is. So she doesn't come off as a great villain because we don't get the moment the snap.
The point of break.
Right. The point of break either happened on screen in WandaVision and we all missed it, or it happened somewhere in between, and everyone in this universe who had an interest in her missed it, because Strange is like, yo, I've seen these runes before. That's what witches do. I'm going to go to the only witch I know that exists and ask her about these. Oh, you were the one. Golly gee willikers, never saw that
coming. So Wanda is very similar to like Mr. Freeze from Batman, where like he's a bad guy, but he's not a bad guy. Like he has emotional investment to like save his wife, and
he has relatable motivations.
Yeah.
Where he's way more nuanced because he wants to save his wife. Wanda wants to go to another universe and baby nap some other Wanda's kids to fill the void.
No, I mean like
of the manufactured kids she made.
Relatively similar concept.
No, I get the idea.
Yeah.
But the thing is, one of these is a character that you potentially, if you've done all the required reading, have followed from being
she was on the lunchbox, right?
A troubled hero through a number of character arcs, resulting in a very, very intriguing point of crisis at the end of WandaVision. And you want to know, okay, how does this crisis resolve? And I want to watch it resolve.
And then
it's already done.
Yeah.
By the time you get to this film, the crisis is over.
I want to see a good actor go through this crisis moment, and she could do it, and then she just never gets to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like what I would like to see, as an inverse of like if they, you had a different story that was written for Doctor Strange,
this is not the what if, this is the what happened.
Yeah, where basically, like everyone is getting along and they're like, hey, we're going to try and figure out a way for you to, get your kids and all this other kind of stuff, and everyone's happy, but there's that one sorcerer apprentice or whatever that is like, no, this is wrong. We don't need to do this. You're messing with the multiverse, blah, 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 blah. And then, like they're about to do it. And then the apprentice, destroys the book or whatever. And then that is like Wanda's no more reasonable time.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to die now.
Give me the snap on screen.
Yeah.
Please.
And it was very unsatisfying seeing that not happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of unsatisfying, it sounds like we're going into entertainment.
No.
I had one more point.
Get it out.
And this was actually about Wong.
Okay.
So Wong in this film is 100, even though he
takes hits like a champ.
He does. Absolutely.
He's the next Rocky.
But he is billed as the Sorcerer Supreme. He is given all the accolades by the whole other sorcerer community, and it's just Strange that still won't bow to him. And he's, they're old buddies, and so he's taking it in good humor, but he's like, I'm Sorcerer Supreme, dude. You should probably show me a little respect. And by the end of the film, Strange has somehow grown enough that he now bows to Wong. So I guess that's fine. But the problem is the way that Wong is written throughout the film is still as the sidekick.
Yep.
Yeah.
He is not written as a leader. He has no tactical acumen whatsoever, no ability to make hard decisions. He caves to Wanda's demands immediately.
Embarrassingly, kind of. I get
with no plan. Like I totally get the fake out of, okay, don't kill the people that didn't die in the initial attack, and I'll take you to this place. And then he takes her to some far off place and then attacks her to get himself killed so that she has no leads.
Right. Or
right?
Like, let's time to keep her busy with fake crap. Whatever. What else can I think of that looks like this mountain?
But nothing. He totally caves and he takes her to the one place that in the whole world that has the thing that she needs to destroy the multiverse.
Yeah, it was pretty embarrassing to watch.
And he goes there with no plan. His whole plan is, well, I'll take her to the place and then she'll kill me. And then like, that'll be that.
And then everyone else will die too.
Yeah.
And it'll be fine.
But he does a complete reversal at the end when he's like, Strange, you have to kill the girl to keep her power away from Wanda. And it's like, that's the call you should have made with your 4 acolytes back at the thing. Is just
they signed up for this.
Yeah, like it did not do that character justice, because it was an excellent opportunity to show growth in tertiary characters that they just completely ignored.
And he's always been a really consistent character before that too.
Yeah.
So it was unfortunate.
Yep.
So moving on to the entertainment.
Yes. Who wants to be? Are you not entertained?
I give it an 8.
You are, in fact.
He was entertained.
That is a threshold of rewatch.
Okay, honestly, mostly because of the middle act of the film. The first and the final act are not that good, minus the musical fight, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
But the middle act, because it is just a straight horror film of watching probably my favorite MCU character, Wanda, just decimate everyone in her path and being a true horror villain, to where they're running down a gloomy corridor trying to just get away from her as quickly as possible. And she's got the glowing red eyes. She's limping. She has blood all over her face.
She's angry.
Yeah, it's fantastic. That is unreasonable Wanda, and I love it.
Full on implacable foe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would watch it again just for that. But yeah, I could probably skip the entire first half and then like basically the end completely.
Yeah. So I also gave it an 8. And yeah, I like the horror elements. So, I've already said that a couple of times. I like the Vader in a hallway that we got with Wanda.
Yeah.
We just can't stand up to this. We have to do something else.
Yeah.
Well, and even at the end, they still couldn't like no one can beat Wanda
except herself.
Except herself. Yeah.
I got to get this in here. I got a couple of good digs in the middle of the movie, just like something whispered into Lauren's as it's happening. But when Christine tells him, well, they're souls of the damned, and you're a master of the mystic arts. Use them, right? And he gathers them about them like a cloak. I leaned over and was like, you'll have to toss me. And then he did it. So sad, because I wasn't convinced that's what was going to happen. And they just leaped. And I was like, yes.
that was another just believe in yourself moment.
Yeah. It's just like, yeah.
It's like, is this how that works?
Yeah.
Because like they've already been seen flying. So now they're just a bunch of birds that are picking you up and then moving you where you need to go.
It was a really fun visual.
Oh, it looked fantastic.
It was really great.
The airspeed velocity of an unladen soul of the damn. But I mean, yeah, overall it was fun. I like the kind of a Marvel growth moment of we've seen other things and we had a new thing in the horror element, and we actually had a pretty good score, which is nice. It's refreshing. There's a lot of Marvel movies, not naming names, that sometimes you're just like, where was the music?
Yeah.
And this one was on screen. So it was
and the music was pretty good.
Yeah. Joel?
Well, I gave it a 6.
Okay.
I was there for the characters, and I didn't feel like the characters showed up.
Yeah, this is a popcorn flick that had a lot of emotional weight that could have been more.
And so Elizabeth Olsen gave it everything that she had, and she did a fantastic job, but they left half the story out of the movie.
Yeah.
And the important half. You need to know these things. Yeah.
Maybe that'll happen in WandaVision season 2. If there is a WandaVision season 2.
I doubt it.
I doubt it.
I really doubt it.
It was a very specific
concept.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, you'll never be able to recreate that same kind of magic the second time. Like, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Because we definitely don't want to go see mid-2000s and mid-2010s TV again. We've already been there.
Oh, let's do the Friends episode. Can we not?
Oh, no.
Oh, but on that note, that sounds like all the time we have for this episode. So until next time, I'm Steven.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Joel.
And as always, every spoiler was intended. Thank you for tuning in. If you like what you heard, you can support the show for as low as $1 at patreon.com/spoilersintendedpodcast. We also have a Discord server and would love to have more people joining in the conversation. Links are in the description below. Thank you.